What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TWA Motorsports, and today, well, it's kind of a maintenance day. And when I say maintenance, we've got something that's been broken on the Yukon, the daily driver Yukon for my wife for the past, golly, it's probably been 6 months, guys. So I don't recommend waiting this long to replace this part, but guys, I'm going to show you in this video how to replace it, and that is a CV shaft. So the actual shaft is still good. Well, I say it's still good. The boot broke it was probably last summer when it broke, and it's been popping and making noise, and she's been complaining about it. And ultimately, guys, it came down to this thing needs brakes, and we're going to do that in a separate video. But I figured we'd just do it all at one time. You know, it's kind of tough when you're working on all this other stuff to maintenance your regular daily drivers, but man, I love this thing. We use it a lot. Like I said, she drives it every day. And so today you can see the new CV shaft that we have set in here. I bought a new GM one, which, guys, I will list in the description down below, as well as all the other stuff that I am using. But we need to get this thing off the ground and replace it. So look, I think we're just gonna have to see. I think it may be a clearancing thing because I have the spindle. When you drop these things and you have a lowering spindle, that top upper ball joint, the actual ball joint itself, you have to lock the end of it off in order to make clearance for that CV shaft. So we're gonna take a look at it and make sure that this one's not gonna be rubbing on that bolt. I may have to trim a little more off of it, but either way, I'm going to show you the process, and then, like I said, in a separate video, we're going to upgrade the brakes on this. It's like borderline, it's starting to squeak, so we need to put brakes on it. And like I said, maintenance on stuff, guys, sometimes that sucks. It's no hot rod stuff. So, but let's get started. I'm going to get the jack under this thing. I'm going to get a couple jack stands. We're going to get this wheel off the ground. I'm only replacing one side because only this side is bad, and which is not normal for me. Generally, I would buy two. But they're relatively expensive for what they are. And but either way, let's get it off the ground, get the wheel off, and we'll get started. Now, you don't need a ton of clearance, but listen to the brakes. Hear that? Rubbing. All right, so 7/8 generally, guys, is what your size is if you've got the factory lug nuts, and we do. And they're pretty snug. And they go to 140 foot-pounds. Now, here's the kicker. If you guys do not have an impact, you're gonna have to take this off, take the center cap out of the wheel, set the thing back down to loosen that axle nut, because you won't be able to do it by hand. So I recommend having an electric impact like this. You'll see what I'm talking about when I get this off. This poor thing needed some maintenance for a while. I keep up on oil changes, but stuff like this, it's just, you know, it's not fun. All right, so this is what I'm talking about. And you're gonna have to have a special tool, well, a special socket. It's a 36 millimeter is what this center is. And so we're gonna have to have that. Look at that, that T bolt has ran its way out a little bit. That's interesting. Yeah, these brakes are completely shot. But anyway, we're gonna focus on this. Let's go grab the 36 millimeter and at least get this completely off. There should be this nut, and then there's a washer back behind it. So this is what I'm talking about. Look how big this thing is. It's for an axle nut. But like I said, if you don't have this, you can still do this in your driveway. You're just gonna have to put your wheel back on because it's gonna wanna spin if you try to do it by hand. But an impact makes life way easier for a lot of reasons. You may have to get a magnet. Sometimes these don't want to cooperate with me getting them out. My fingers just aren't small enough to get in there. Oh, got it. See what I'm talking about? Now, there's kind of some controversy. Should you replace this? I mean, look, you don't have to. It's not like a torque to yield situation. I noticed that my new axle that I got from GM did not come with one. So in my opinion, that means that they don't recommend. I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I'm not gonna put a new one on it, so keep that to the side. So now, guys, we need to, I don't know if we're gonna have enough room to sneak this thing out without removing the pan on the bottom, but I'm gonna grab a light. We're gonna take you in here and show you what we need to unhook next. So I don't know if you guys, I wanted to show you here first. You can see where that boot, I'm pretty sure you can see where it rubbed. See that? I think that's our issue. It's interesting. Huh. All right, so that boot is obviously broken. You can see the junk everywhere all over this thing. But the next thing we need to take off are those 15 millimeters back there on the flange. You see those? There is a total of 6 of them. And look, guys, sometimes you get lucky and that plastic tray below, so you can see the plastic tray there, you can push it down. See that? In order to make clearance to get that thing out. Sometimes you got to take it off. I'm hoping we don't have to because there's several bolts that hold that thing on, but you need a 15 millimeter. And so what I've got here is I've got my swivel, I've got a long extension, and obviously my impact. So that's what we're going to take off next. We're going to take all 6 of those flange bolts off. And if it makes it easier, you have the ability to spin this to turn it. So as we spin the front of the wheel here, we'll be able to turn each one of those to get to them if they're like something's in the way. Now I'm able to reach this one from this side. I've got the one very back here. And there's not much on them, so you can see that's all it took to get one out. Like I said, they're just 15 millimeters. So what I like to do is generally just stay consistent and stay in that spot. So I roll it around, get the next one, and I just keep doing that until all 6 of them are out. There's your next one. You can see it doesn't take, it takes longer to get it lined up than it does to get the bolt out. The hardest part is going back together because we got to torque these. And I've watched a couple videos online of people doing this. I mean, I've done it before, but I was just watching some of their videos, and they say you have to get it realigned after this. Guys, we're not knocking any of the ball joints loose, or the tie rod for that matter. So you don't need to get an alignment if you don't have to knock those things loose to get it out. Now, maybe things will change, but... So now, we've got it out. You can see that it's loose. And so sometimes you can pry it forward a little bit and get it to knock down. And this is where I'm saying, can we get the plastic tray far enough out of the way to make this happen? Oh, we're hitting the I'm hitting the top of the shock bolt here. So what I may do is I may just relieve the pressure on the shock bolt just to give this suspension some more droop. That way we can get this thing out. Those are just 15 millimeters as well. You can see the shock bolts I'm hitting right there. We really need this suspension to relax a little bit, which may mean we have to loosen the sway bar end length as well. I just think it'll be a little easier on me if I do that. I'm gonna loosen both these. We'll have to lift it back up with the jack, but that's fine. There's one. And you're probably gonna see some suspension droop when I let this one loose. No, not as much as I thought. That sway bar holds a little more than we think. All right, so let's go grab a 15 millimeter. I've got a, this is also 15. We'll grab a wrench to hold the top, and we'll loosen the sway bar, and then that should give us a little bit more droop as well. See if we can get this sway bar end link loose over here. Ooh, that's snug. You know it's snug when your impact won't loosen it up. Huh. May have to start this one with the, my battery may be going dead on my impact. May have to start this one with the breakover. Okay, WD-40 is our friend. Let's see if we can get it off here now. go. We don't necessarily have to take it out. See that, how much more we got now? If I can clear this flange, that'd be great. All right, so we've got it loose. We're gonna come back out here to the outside and we're gonna get a hammer and we're gonna see if we can knock this loose. You see this spot in the middle? It doesn't necessarily matter because, you know, you can booger up the threads. Just don't get crazy, because if you mushroom the end of this, then you're gonna have trouble getting it through the hole, but we can tap it a couple times. It shouldn't take much to get it loose. Let's see if we can, yeah, see? Barely even hit it. So now what we may have to do to get additional room is turn the wheel, which is probably locked. Yeah. Let me go turn the accessory on and see if we can get the wheel into a free spinning position. You know, the older vehicles, these have electric power steering, so you don't have the ability to kind of move stuff around like you do on the older ones. But let's see if we can move it a little bit, kind of get an angle that we want. Now, oh my gosh, there's grease all over everything back here. I'm gonna have to use the steering wheel, I guess. This is not happening. And we got it out. Well, we got it out of the definitely would be better off taking this plastic off the bottom, guys. We're clear the spindle. Just got to get it around the plastic down here. I gotta go get a towel because there is literally junk everywhere. I'm gonna have to turn this wheel, no ifs, ands, or buts, at least this direction, so we have a little more clearance. You can see now that I've got the wheel turned, we've got majority of the clearance that we need here. We just got to figure out how to thread this sucker out. I think the easiest way is going to be to take that sway bar end length all the way out. I didn't think we were going to have to, but that's going to give us the clearance we need to sneak that big old guy out of there. I just don't think, if it wasn't lowered, guys, well, let's see if we can come this way. I just don't think we're gonna clear. Yeah, there's no way we're gonna clear it that way. So let's go ahead and take the sway bar end link all the way out. And I think that'll give us the additional room we need. Got it out of there. So now I think we're gonna go the other way. Man, I don't want to take that shock out if I don't have to. But I think I may need the additional room to sneak this guy the rest of the way out. Because here's what's happening. The sway bar, while I got the room, the sway bar is not moving up because the other side is still connected. So what I may have to do, just because I don't want to loosen the shock, if the shock were out of the way, this would be pretty simple. Or if, yeah, one of the two is gonna have to give. To me, it's easier to jack the other side up, take the wheel off, and do it that way. I mean, there's only 3 18 millimeters and a plug on the top of this. I guess, you know, I could do that. We'll just see what I decide I want to do here. It probably would be easier to do the 3 18s up top and just get the shock out of the way. Actually, that probably makes the most sense. Because this is mag ride, guys, there's a plug that comes out of the center that we need to unplug. So I don't know if you guys can see that wire coming out of the center of this. Eventually, we are going to ditch the mag ride on this thing. Hopefully very soon we're going to be upgrading to something different. But for now, we need to get those 18 millimeters. There's just 3 of them up there. but we need to get that plug unplugged. I can't push this back far enough to show you guys, but you'll see where it plugs in back behind there. And it may have a lock in it that you may have to use a like small flat blade screwdriver to unlock it before you unplug it. But we'll get that unplugged and those 18s loose, and then that should allow us to drop this strut through, push it back and through, and then it'll be real easy to pull out our old CV boot. Figure it'd be a little easier to show you guys so it's not completely blind. You could also take your 18s from under the hood, but this guy right here is the plug that we need to undo, and it does have a lock in it. So we need to slide the lock back and unplug this right here. That is what is controlling our mag ride shock. You see, I've taken it off of the mounting surface, but let's get it unplugged. I went ahead, since I had the hood open, and took the 18s loose up there, but now we should be able to push this down, that back, sneak this guy out. Just be careful with your wiring. Once we get that out of the way, then our CV boot is really simple. All right, got the old one out. It's trash, that's for sure. But let's go grab our other one and put it up beside it and take a look at them. Check that out. I think GM redesigned these, because like I said, guys, I ordered this from GM as a GM part. I don't like the aftermarket ones. The flanges are really thin. This guy's really cheaply made, in my opinion. So it's kind of interesting. I will tell you that I think we're gonna have a lot more clearance with that ball joint stud not hitting. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that they've maybe changed some things. This one has a rubber boot there. No, I guess that's metal. It's just covered in grease. It looks like rubber. But yeah, I think we may have a little more clearance. So let's get this new one in and get this thing back together. Isn't it crazy how much more room you have when you take stuff out? I know there's probably a way to do it a different way, guys. Not take all that stuff out, but I don't know. To me, why? Why would we try? Let's see if we can get this thing in here. Really close. There we go. Get our splines lined up. Which is always the fun part. There we go. And so then, once we do that, I wonder if see if we can get our flange lined up. Absolutely. And we can get these started back in place, our 15 millimeters that we took out. This thing should be symmetrical, and when I say that, like, there's no like right or wrong way to line this up. As long as your bolts line up, you should be good. Yeah, that's not too bad. Now I wonder how hard is it going to be to sneak our strut back in place. I'll tell you what, I may do that before I put any more 15s in, because we may need that over a little bit to sneak the strut up in there. Let's just see. Yep, that is the case. So good thing I didn't put all those in. Take this loose and kind of move it over to the side or at the bottom down here like it was. Now maybe we got enough room to get the strut back up here. There we go. And this does go in a certain way. This is aligned in a manner that it's got to go back in the same way it came out. Which, if you guys have watched the lowering video on this thing, you'll know what I'm talking about, but there it is. There we go. And it wouldn't hurt to grab your 18 millimeters and go ahead and get them started up top. Push this down. There we go. Woo! That's a workout. Definitely a workout. I went ahead and started the shock bolts, both the 18s on the top and the 15s on the bottom. So now maybe we can get our thing up here and start our 15s like we had done just previous. There we go. Got it lined up. We'll get our 15 started, and yeah, it's just really hard to reach in here now. And then once I get those 15 started, I'm probably going to turn the wheel back to straight. But I will tell you guys, I'll pull back here in a second and show you with the camera, but we have way more clearance with this new one than we did with the old one. So chances are at some point we will be doing the other side, would be my guess. I'm sure of it. Just a matter of time until it goes bad. I don't feel like I feel like I would have noticed that when we were originally doing the lowering kit, but maybe I didn't. All right, I won't make you guys sit and watch me thread these in. We'll get all the bolts back in, including the sway bar end link, and then we'll come back and talk about torque specs and this axle flange nut. We need to get it on as well, which we can go ahead and do too. Remember, the washer goes on first and then the nut behind that. So let's get all that accomplished. I wanted to show you before we went back together, we have quite a bit more room on this now. You can see that it was dragging across that other one, and it's we probably got, I don't know, a 1/4 inch of clearance now. So maybe GM redesigned that. They obviously did, because like I said, this is a GM part. So either way, let me get the wheel straightened back out, and then we will talk about torque specs, because some of this stuff you want to torque with weight on the suspension. So like your strut and your sway bar end link, we want to tighten that up once we get some weight on this thing. But the axle flange back there, we can torque that down we don't have to have weight on the suspension. We'll wait and do this guy last. So at this point, I've got everything snugged up, and what you're probably wondering is like, okay, so how are we going to torque those axle flange nuts? Well, guys, I like to use a pry bar here to keep this from moving, and since I'm a one-man operation, we're going to use our long extension. I've got my torque wrench set up, and what I like to do is, since there's 6 of them, I like to do it like I'm putting on a wheel. So we'll go left side, right side. I should have enough reach to do both those. And if not, you can spin it around and do just the opposite side. But these guys go to 57 foot-pounds. So they're not like super tight, but I do like to torque those. So we'll get those all torqued down, starting, like I said, in a crisscross pattern. And once we get that done, then we're gonna have to really put weight on the suspension. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a jack underneath the A-arm, lift this up while we tighten the 2 bottom shock bolts and the sway bar end link. Once we get that done, we can put the wheel back on and worry about tightening our, I already ran this down snug, the axle nut on the outside, but once we get it on the ground, then we can tighten up our 18 millimeters that we unhooked up top and make sure that everything's plugged back in. Now you can see I've got the jack underneath the A-arm. I'm lifting it just enough to get it off the jack that we just pulled the truck up with. And guys, look, you can tighten the other ones up top right now if you wanted to. The problem though is that's a pretty good reach. So I like to let I like to put the wheel down and do it where I'm not trying to reach over the fender as much. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead, I've already got the sway bar end link ran down. That needs to torque to 17 millimeters, guys. I generally do that by eye. I generally don't go by torque specs. I just run it down until it starts to stop, and you can't spin the center section. That's generally when you know it's tight. But 37 foot-pounds is what goes on the bottom of the strut. So we'll see if we can get, yeah, I've got enough room here to get my torque wrench in there and get 37 foot-pounds on the bottom of these. Now, 37 foot-pounds is also what goes on the top. So if you guys are wondering, like, well, what about the top? Well, it's gonna be 37 as well. I probably won't show you guys that because I'm gonna do it from under the hood, so it's a little bit easier reach for me. You don't wanna over tighten these. There's 37 right there, and it's not very much. But it does sit on top of the arm. I know they make some kits that move that to lower it. I don't like that, guys. So we got that. So now at this point, since we got those two things snugged up, we're gonna go ahead and put the wheel back on, but we need to pop the center out of the wheel because we need to tighten this with weight on the ground. Once I have it set down, I went ahead and torqued those 18 millimeters to 37. Got my plug back in, all the wiring is happy. You know, hopefully we don't have any issues. So, and then obviously I had to do all that. I had to put the wheel on, but you can see I've got the center cap out. So now we need to torque that axle flange nut down. And the reason why, obviously guys, we popped it out is because the wheel would want to spin. You're no way you're going to be holding it for the amount of torque it takes. It's 177 foot-pounds to get that guy snug. So we're going to snug that down, and then we're going to torque the wheels to 140, and we are finished. So there you have it, guys. I went ahead and snapped, torqued the wheels down to 140 like the specifications call for, 177 on that center. Got the center cap back in. I actually just took it down the road. Everything is working great. So it's always a good idea to test it, take it down the road, make sure you don't have any vibrations or anything like that. Generally, it's, you don't, but you know, there's always a slight chance, you know, maybe you got a bad part or something. But another reason why I choose GM stuff, guys, like I said, in the past, I bought some of these, and this is the old one, obviously, but I bought some of these, and the flange right here, it's a good ½ inch thick. And on the aftermarket ones, it's like paper thin. And you know, maybe they're fine. And it's not like we engage this thing in four-wheel drive a lot, but look, I want it to be good. I want it to be quality. So that's why I choose to buy GM parts when available. I mean, I'm not saying there's not other brands out there that are good, but look, another thing somebody's probably going to ask is, do you think, you know, this was kind of premature wear from being lowered? I think, guys, that it was raking up against that. It started to pop after all the grease came out. So, which is pretty common because dirt and water get in there, and it just wears out that joint. That's the whole reason that boot's there, is to keep dirt and debris out of there. So once we break that seal, you're gonna have that stuff. But I've never had any problems. Guys, we put 50,000 miles on this thing with it being lowered, and the other one is doing fine. So I don't think you're getting any additional wear because it's lowered. To me, guys, there's no difference in being lowered versus being lifted. So when you lift one, the angle goes like this, and when you lower one, it kind of goes like this. It's when it's straight that there's some binding. And this one, obviously, as you could see, once I loaded up the suspension, it kind of goes uphill. So it's just the reverse of doing a lift kit. And but we love it. You know, it works great in the snow around here. We don't go off-road in it, so we can lower four-wheel drives here. It just makes it easier for my wife to get in. And anyway, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this. Sorry I fumbled through. You think as many times as I've lowered one of these and taken stuff in and out that I would know I had to take the shock out of place, but not a big deal. You know, 3 bolts. If you don't have mag right, it's just 3 bolts and no plug, so it's even easier. But hopefully you guys did enjoy it. If you did, please, like always, go down there and smash that thumbs up button, guys. We got more coming on this. Obviously, like I said, we're gonna do brakes. I don't know how quickly. I thought I was just gonna leave the wheel off, but my wife is needing to use this. So brakes are the next thing, and we're gonna do a little bit of an upgrade at the same time we're doing it. So I'm kind of excited about that, although it is maintenance, but it's kind of an upgrade. So I like doing upgrades, not just maintenance. But go down there and hit that subscribe button, guys. While you're down there doing all that, of course, ring that bell icon. That notifies you every time we drop a new video. And stay tuned to see what we work on next.